I do want to follow on Dak after the Cowboys won on Monday, and just because they're like a very public team, and I don't mean public in the sense that like bettors like want to bet the Cowboys, more than like they're probably the most popular team in the NFL, the team that everyone wants to talk about all the time, that all the talk shows are constantly talking about. And Dak, like for what it's worth, like played great on Monday night and made like the play of the game basically to win the game for the Cowboys. He's at 40-1. Dallas is now 4-2, and if Dallas can like win the NFC East or be the 1 seed in the NFC, I don't know if Dak can get there, Ken. Like, I don't know that I would bet on him, but I do think it's worth at least asking the question because people in our audience might be interested in Dak Prescott. What do you think about Dak at 40-1?
Currently 13th in the NFL in passing yards and only 6 touchdown passes in 6 games. Tua and Kirk Cousins both have 14, just to give you like a frame of reference. Usually touchdown passes in your position group is really predictive. The yards can kind of go either way. Really, you just want an awesome statistical resume. Whatever you think that means, you're probably right. And Dak doesn't have anything close to it right now. So, he can win just like... we're still early in the year, just like almost anyone can win this early in the year. But do I think he's like a viable play on? Do I think he's being underrated by the market and he should be much less? The answer to that is definitely no. And, I think with him, it's the same problem a lot of these guys have. If you're trying to pick out a challenger to rival Tua and potentially like overtake him to win the award, we've had a lot of unders the last couple of weeks. Unders had like their best week in the NFL, and what goes along with unders? Bad quarterback performances, right? Not a lot of passing yards, not a lot of touchdown passes. Who's going to like ramp up their statistics here? No one's on pace for a remotely record-setting season. Everything's down. Yards are way down. Like you look at how these guys project. It's kind of bad. Like you look at like even the 3rd, 4th, 5th best quarterback. You go, these numbers stink. Like, it's actually pretty rough. It's why I think it's like impossible a quarterback wins Offensive Player of the Year unless it's Tua, and I don't think it's him. I just like, who's it going to be? I don't think it's Dak. And to bring in one other guy, just because I've gotten a lot of questions about this guy too, Jared Goff is like a lot of discussion this week because the Lions have been so good. The biggest problem with him, he's actually like a victim of the team he plays on, because the reason that the Lions are winning games might be him, but the reason everyone thinks they're winning games is because of their coach and because of the fact that they've had so many injured players and they've won anyway despite that. Dan Campbell's like too magnetic of a personality, too front-facing, too like all over social media all the time. Like if they win a lot of games, and it's really possible the Lions might win a lot of games. I was asked about this like 6 different times this week. I would never bet Goff because like Campbell would just win Coach of the Year unanimously if they won like 13, 14 games. And I actually think Goff wouldn't get a lot of credit for that. But Tua is the favorite to win Most Valuable Player right now. He's been the leading passer in the league. Just curious, when we get to the end of the season, it's a quarterback-driven award. So you'd probably be the best person to ask here. Just who you would, maybe think would come out on top at the end of the year. Not who's ahead now. I think we think Tua is ahead right now. But in 60 seconds, at the end of the year, who do you think the best chance to win Most Valuable Player is?
Well, I think if it continues as it is right now, it comes down to 2 guys, and that's Tua, as you said, and then you got to give props to Jared Goff. I mean, what the Lions are doing right now at 5-1 and playing the way they're playing, and him playing the way that he's playing. They're 13-3 in their last 16 games, and I think he's thrown 28 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. He's just playing at an incredibly high level right now on a team that really is a tough football team, both sides of the ball, and they believe in themselves. They really feel like they're a team of destiny, and they're playing that way. And they walk into every game. They're not afraid of anybody, and they are now expecting to win, as we talked about a little bit earlier with the Jaguars. The Lions obviously are a little bit further along in their overall development, but I really do like Jared Goff and the Lions, and I think if they continue to play well, he's going to be in that conversation for sure.
That is a hell of an answer there by our guy Steve Berline. Also, I'm betting the Lions on Sunday, so let's go Jared Goff, and let's get this MVP campaign really rolling on Sunday. Bryce Young is 80-1 with the Panthers on their bye, and a new play caller after the bye, and offensive coordinator Thomas Brown. And I figured I would just throw this out there because I'm sure, I don't know, Ken, if you've been asked about this guy already, but what if Tyson Bagent is good? And he just keeps playing for the Bears. He's 150-1. So I just figured I would toss him in there just because he's starting this weekend for the Bears. Thoughts here, Ken, on Offensive Rookie of the Year. P squared NFL Awards continues.
Yeah, the Bagent thing is funny, right? Because it's Brock Purdy last year. When was Brock Purdy's first start? Week 9, week 10, maybe something like that? Later? And won every start and like actually got votes. Now that was a really bad offensive rookie of the year class because people missed a lot of games, and like Garrett Wilson had the best numbers sort of. And just if it's going to be like that Brock Purdy played for Kyle Shanahan, like that's why that case was made, and that's why he was able to do that. And like cool, like Tyson Bagent can be good, and I don't really care honestly, like yet, and I don't have to care yet. This is the award that's the closest to being over. Not that it's close to being over, but it's the closest to being over, just because of attrition. Because like people just can't stay healthy and can't get a stranglehold on like the feature role in their particular offense. And so like there's just not a lot of competition for CJ Stroud, and it's the lack of competition is starting to get so jarring that I honestly think he could start playing worse and he'd still win easily, which is like really wild because like Bijan's just not getting explosive plays, and like you mentioned, like he's splitting carries still. Puka Nacua like can have good statistical games still, but like look what Cooper Kupp did to the Cardinals last week, and like look what Puka Nacua didn't do to the Cardinals last week, and it's like Cooper Kupp's going to be around for a while and he's awesome, and it's not that Nacua again can't have a good season, but like offensive rookie of the year now, like that seems kind of tough. Achane's hurt. You go down the list, Addison, like that was Addison's best chance to have like a nuclear kind of a game, like Bears defense, no Jefferson, and he gave you what, like 50 and a touchdown, like something like that. And it's got to be way better than that for him to win. And oh, by the way, it's the Niners this week. Like, it sounds awesome. You just look down the list. Like, I'd love to make a case for someone else. We bet a lot of Stroud when Achane got hurt, thinking that his price would improve, and some Bijan. And I'm really comfortable to hold on to that right now. And I think I'm going to end up with the winner a lot of the time if Stroud stays healthy. So there's so little to do here at the top. Just like to bring it up, though, and you and I think have talked hashtag off air or on air. You and I have just talked about this a little bit, and I do actually think that this will sound nuts, but I don't think it's nuts to Nick, and I don't think it's nuts to me. That like is the second most likely player to win Offensive Rookie of the Year Bryce Young? Not the most likely. Not the most likely. Is the second most likely. Like Stroud is the most likely by far, but like we see what this is with Bijan. We know what this is, and it's not a winner. Like Nacua with Kupp back, we see what this is, and it's not a winner. Achane's hurt. Like, yeah, he could come back in 4 weeks and then like would have to average like 250 yards. Oh, by the way, Mostert has 70 touchdowns. So just like he not a winner. Like because of the injury. Like Tank Dell, concussion, like not having Jackson Smith and Jigba, role can improve, still the third receiver. Like probably not a winner. Just like could Bryce Young just start playing better? Like, is that realistic?
I think
like,
it already happened. He played well against Miami. They just gave up 100 points.
Sunday. Yeah, so it just like, can this happen? And what is the threshold where like, what does good mean where he could get back in this discussion? I know that sounds crazy because like they've been the worst, and that's why his price is crazy. But like, he's the number one pick. If he ever started being good, you don't think this thing would catch fire crazily over like a 2 to 3 week period? So like, it's these other guys are interesting, and you need I think in literally all their cases, you need an injury for the case to, like another injury in Addison's case maybe, or something, for the case to even happen. They're all non-winners to me. Stroud's a winner, and like if Bryce Young can get better, which is a big if, a huge if, he can still, it's early, he can still be a winner easily here. Just like, look how far his prices got out to. So maybe it's not this week. Maybe it's next week. Like we have this week's games. Houston's on a bye too, for what it's worth, Stroud. And maybe it's like, maybe some book let Bryce Young get to 200 or 150 or like an afterthought price, right? Where like you just put a couple bucks on it. Like it's the number one pick. I honestly think maybe he's not the second most likely, but like maybe he is. He's at least in that discussion because he just has to play better. The opportunity's there. The problem with all these other guys is the opportunity's not there.
Couple things. Number one, let's say that Bryce Young starts playing better. There is a narrative that has now emerged that will say, well, actually, hashtag well, actually, it wasn't Bryce Young's fault that he played poorly. Frank Reich his play calling was prehistoric, and now he has given it up to the Sean McVay understudy, like the wonder kid Thomas Brown, who's now going to be calling plays. So I think that Bryce Young doesn't go under the bus. I think Frank Reich goes under the bus, and Frank Reich would also be credited for giving the play. That actually doesn't hurt Frank Reich, but I think excuses can be made for Bryce Young. Also, the Carolina Panthers are on the bye this week. The Houston Texans are on the bye this week. When both teams return in Week 8 off the bye on Sunday, October 29th, they will play each other in Carolina. Panthers host the Texans coming up in Week 8. So it'll be Young v. Stroud, the first overall pick against the second overall pick. And then, on November 5th, the Panthers host the Colts with Gardner Minshew, not Anthony Richardson. On November 9th, on a Thursday night, the Panthers go to Chicago. I think that's a Thursday at least. Maybe I'm wrong. Whatever. Anyway, they play the Bears. So that could be... how many Thursday games do the frickin' Bears play? God. So anyway, we get a lot. Just because that's what we need in primetime is more Matt Eberflus. Panthers could be 3-6 possibly. I'm not saying that's going to happen. Just it wouldn't be impossible for it to happen. And I'm a Bryce Young fan.
Yeah. Also, for people who are curious, your team record... Yeah, if it's Stroud versus Young and Stroud wins way more, then that will be a tiebreaker or an edge for Stroud. But if they both don't win a lot and Stroud has 3 more wins, but Young has better stats at the end of the year, Young's winning. That's what's going to happen. The only coach I'd be thinking about a little bit here, and they're on bye this week, so you never have to bet them now anyway. You can actually wait to see if these two guys lose this week to make this decision. Starting to develop a healthy interest in Robert Saleh to win NFL Coach of the Year this year after the Jets beat the Eagles last week, an incredibly important game for their playoff chances and this award. The Jets won 7 games last year, I believe something like that. And so a reasonable improvement for them would be a wild card spot. Making the playoffs. And obviously you have all of the narrative-driven stuff that goes along with this. He's been front and center the last couple weeks, had that kind of mic drop quote that they finally beat the Eagles after the franchise hadn't beaten them before. He's front and center. Rodgers is throwing passes off to the side, so it's a sideshow. They're always in the news. It's New York. And if he takes Zach Wilson to a playoff spot, and not just takes him to a playoff spot, that would represent a marked improvement over the team's record the previous year. 4+ is usually what you're looking for. Can the Jets really go 11-6? Can that really happen? If you look at the schedule, it's actually not that crazy that God forbid Rodgers ever comes back late in the year and they win a couple games too, by the way, to get you a wild card spot. You're not making the bet based on that. So again, haven't bet it. They're on a bye. But they're going to come off the bye. They're going to play the Giants. So, this thing's going to start getting rolling here a little bit in terms of momentum with the Jets getting back for, the 7 seed. Remember, the Chargers lost. So, the path to the 7 seed gets a little bit more open. Cincinnati is going to want to have their say. We'll see how Cleveland does over the weekend with Deshaun back. But there's a little bit of an opening here, especially if, maybe Pittsburgh, TJ Watt's out, they lose. You can see this kind of coming together. The Patriots are eliminated. You got to worry about the Raiders. I don't think so. Where Saleh becomes interesting, but you don't have to bet him this week because his price won't change. Even if McDaniel and Campbell lose, the coaches who win will take that win probability, and Saleh will still be 15, 20 to 1, whatever, going into the Giants game. So that's the only name I have circled as okay, let's get a little more down the road, just even a week, and then maybe we can craft a case for someone at a big price, especially if Campbell or McDaniel take losses in kind of likely lost games this week.
And I'll say this about the Jets, and I know this because I was on WFAN earlier and we were talking about the Jets maybe making the playoffs. It's possible that could happen. So a lot of the teams, Ken, that you reference, teams that the Jets might have to worry about in terms of maybe getting into the 7 seed in the playoffs. So they play Cleveland. They host Houston. They play the Raiders. They play the Chargers. In Week 18, if there were ever a time to break this ridiculous losing streak they're on to the Patriots, it would be then. They play all these teams. So it's all in front of them here, for the Jets, where if you're bullish on them, they win a bunch of games. Not only are they winning, but the teams that they're competing with for the final couple playoff spots are losing. So I like the thought there on Robert Saleh. I actually think he's kind of an underrated head coach as well, and I think he'll get a ton of credit also if they get there without Rodgers.
Oh, I totally agree.
How about this? Let's say they go 9-8, and it's only a 2-game improvement, but they make the playoffs with Zach Wilson as the quarterback the whole year. I think that might be enough to get him a ton of consideration.
I agree. The only other thing
they don't have to go 11-6, right? They could go 9-8 as long as they make it.
Right, it would be because it becomes like a Vrabel thing where it's like, well, the team didn't improve that much, but there was like the narrative built into like, well, the guys were hurt and they were doing really well. And I know Tennessee was the 1 seed, but like you get the idea. So the only other thing I'd add here for now, so I think it's like bookmark Saleh for next week. We really might take a position on him next week, and let's see if Campbell and McDaniel take losses this week.
What happens if like Aaron Rodgers comes back? Like in like week 18 or like even in like the wild card round, could Rodgers win comeback player of the year? He's not listed anywhere. He's probably not going to play, but like just to get ahead of it, maybe that's something that could happen. Your thoughts on comeback player of the year? We don't have to do Rodgers or Kyler now. Like hit us with your analysis of the market. If we have time, we can do it.
I can do them in like 30 seconds, and we'll do more on them next week because I think that's probably a good idea. Kyler, I think we just totally book our market for next week. The price probably won't change because he's not going to play. Now, maybe he goes like 150 to 50 because people buy when he returns, but like it's a next week conversation. I don't think he'd win anyway, but it's a next week conversation. Rodgers keeps going on McAfee and like taking shots at Anthony Fauci and stuff. I don't think voters have any desire whatsoever to give him this award, which is like a completely not stat narrative driven award. Like they give him MVP because he has the best stats and he's on the best team. That's easy. Like you write his name down for this kind of a thing. I think there's like no shot, honestly. And it's interesting word choice.